Chapter 40. What? You're my uncle? He released a shallow sigh, then grabbed my wrist.
Later. Come.
He yanked me forward so hard I almost tumbled. I didn't enjoy being handled by someone who'd hidden our familial bonds. It wasn't that I doubted the claim. It was too outrageous to be anything but true, and Goddess knew Baba had hidden everything else in this strange world from me. But the idea he'd strung me along, earned my trust, all but forced me to bind to him. And for what? To preserve a room in an academy where they'd no longer let me take classes? I was starting to question his logic and tore free from his grip. I can run on my own. Although I expected another reproach at my outburst, Drawson let my hand slip away, then pushed ahead. The rear door of the temple banged open on squeaky hinges, and once we were inside, it closed behind us on its own. I turned, squealed a high pitch I hadn't heard from myself since I was a wee bit, and would have fallen if not for Drawson grasping my arm once again to yank me upright. Roshan stood with her back pressed to the door, her palm set flat against its face. "Did they see you enter?" I shook my head, but Drawson, my uncle, contradicted the gesture with his words.
"There's no way to know. We must move quickly. Tess, can you take me to where you were earlier today? Can we hide there until Roshan can call for support?"
"Call whom?" I worked my jaw. "I can understand why Drawson would help, but why you?" "Because I fear what would come of you if I didn't, Tess." She ran to the inner door to my right, then flung it open. "Come." We slipped inside, but before Roshan could close the door behind us, the outer door burst open and the High Chancellor's men flooded into the room, the red-headed caster bringing up the rear. One of the men hurried to the door and forced it open. Drawson stepped forward.
"I'm sorry, Priestess, but we won't be stopped."
He shoved Roshan into the closest soldier, who took a single lumbering step backward as he caught her. Drawson raised one hand. A casting bar appeared over his head and filled in less than a second. A halo the color of storm clouds bloomed around his fingers, then white, hot energy fired in bolts and slammed into Roshan's chest. The priestess and soldier came off the ground, then flew across the room. Drawson reached for the door, but the fiery-haired woman threw out both hands and a ribbon of white shot out and impacted my torso. The wind left me and my muscles convulsed as I slammed onto my back.
"Surrender or be felled,"
one of the soldiers called, raising his sword to Drawson's throat. My master stared down at the blade, then craned his neck to peer down at me as I shook violently. He lowered his hands.
"We surrender."
The soldier grabbed his biceps, dragged him forward, then withdrew little metallic bindings from his belt. He snapped them around Drawson's wrists. They glowed green. The woman who'd disabled me approached. She tilted her head as if studying an unknown specimen of tadpole. "Hello, Tess. I will be your guardian. My name is Shaughnessy. If you resist, you will suffer greatly. Do you understand?" I still shook too violently for her to discern when I nodded my head, but she seemed to find the answer in my eyes. "Good. We'll get along just fine then." She turned. "Take him outside. I'll bring her when she recovers." The men obeyed, and only Roshan lingered behind. They didn't bother helping her up, but she eventually pressed her back to the wall and rose. One hand bloomed white, then a spark of light illuminated the middle of her chest, then spread in all directions. Her skin returned from a whitish pallor to the coppery tone I was used to. Shaughnessy reached down. I stared at her hand for a few heartbeats before I grasped it. She swept me up, dusted off the back of my robe, then patted my back. "Very good. Now let's go see the High Chancellor. He wasn't finished talking to you." The woman threw a short glance at Roshan on her way. The priestess bowed her chin. "Thank you for your assistance." Shaughnessy didn't respond. At least Drawson's ruse brought the priestess her freedom. If they'd known she was helping us. Well, I didn't want to imagine how I could have ruined her life. But now I'd ruined my uncle's, and only moments after having found out we were related. Harboring me would have been one thing, but aiding in my escape? The High Chancellor's harsh demeanor left me with no doubt the punishment doled out to Roshan would have been harsh, and would be most severe to me. Then again, I knew nothing of the man before that day, and even less about the city from which he'd come or its ideas surrounding justice. But I needed only to know that if someone had murdered me, my father would have scoured the hillsides until he could mete out the simple man's justice. I expected no better fate for myself, but perhaps Drassen would escape the same end. Maybe if I cooperated. When Shaughnessy dragged me past the front entrance, I perked up. Where are we going? To Trowelsby. Shut your mouth or I'll render you speechless. I obeyed. Drassen paced ahead, still in the clutches of the bearded soldier. I thought about sending him a party message, but decided if he'd wanted to talk, he would have. Sometimes it suited to remain silent. We reached the structure containing the portal stands and the magic paper that heated the room against its cold stone walls. The High Chancellor was already inside, waiting with an air of confidence that his will would be done. I disliked him very much. A portal popped open atop one of the stands and, although I expected to see a grand sight of a large city for the first time, I instead spied a dark area with a long, recognizable table on the other side. A familiar, fiery-haired woman dressed in silver plate revealing her midriff and matching plated shorts stepped through. Dicini. Behind her stood an elven woman with tight golden braids flowing over her ears and down her back. Slung over her shoulder was a beautiful white bow with intricate carvings. She stepped to the side to reveal a shorter elven woman with equally golden hair. She wore a shimmering black robe of soft velvet. A crooked wand was stuffed in her belt, and a shiny obsidian staff was strapped on her back. She walked forward and faced the Chancellor. The warmth coming off her rolled over me in an invisible blanket.
I am High Chancellor Ter of Trowelsby. What is the meaning of this?
The elven woman's expression remained stony as she looked the Chancellor up and down. Her gaze drifted to the caster who gripped my arm. My name is Lady Priya Sky, daughter of the matron of the Darkwood, Jara. Who? And who? The High Chancellor swallowed audibly.
Jara? The matron? You are...
I am she, and I invoke the law. You will release Contessa of Milbury and Drassen Welling into the custody of Magister Lyra or face penalty. The woman clutching my arm released it, then lifted one hand. Priya Sky twisted her lips into a sneer, but I saw humor in her eyes and the way her forehead wrinkled. I will drop you like a bad habit, bitch. Despite the strange way she combined the word, I took her meaning. Shaughnessy seemed to as well. Her hand dropped to her side. One of the bearded soldiers reached for the hilt of the sword at his belt. Then the first elven woman drew her bow in a blur of motion. An arrow knocked to its string even though I'd missed its drawing from her quiver. And I am Amelia Horn, assigned to the protection of Zara's daughter by Queen Simoncia of the Northern Elves. Unsheath that sword and I will dig your grave with it. A glow of white light stretched from Fletching to the golden tip. All attention shifted to the Michonne woman who'd stepped through first. She shrugged. I'm the Cine. I grinned. The Michonne winked.
Where did you come from?
The Chancellor demanded.
How did you know we were here?
Shaughnessy answered. A ruse. The priestess is one of theirs. I fought alongside her on the wall against the demon hordes in Trowelsby. High Chancellor Ter smirked.
Seems the two of you are on different sides now.
Shaughnessy nodded, but her gaze returned to Priya. The door to the reception area flung open, then Magister Lyra stepped inside. She scanned the faces of the occupants, then focused on the elven beauty, Priya Sky. She bowed. Blessed one, welcome back to Warrington. Priya returned the bow, but her gaze never left Shaughnessy. Thank you, Lyra. It's been too long. You may take custody of your student. Lyra tapped my shoulder and waved me outside. I'm sorry for all of this, High Chancellor Ter, but the law is the law. If we find Contessa of Milbury is in any way responsible for the death of your son, I will see to it you are informed. The High Chancellor's upper lip twitched and his nostrils flared.
You will regret this.
You're probably right. Lyra lifted her hand and snapped her fingers. Master Renard appeared from nowhere, tapped my shoulder, then waved me back toward the academy. This was getting tiresome. The magic bubbles surrounding me as I sat in the cell left my spirit drained. My shoulders folded under their own weight, and my eyelids drooped. I didn't know if that was part of its effect or if I was just exhausted. Probably a little of both. Instead of hugging the air around me like Roshan's protective shield, this magic's perimeter touched the stone brick walls. After 2 hours of silence, I wondered how the magic persisted with no one around to cast it. With considerable effort, I dragged myself from the wooden bench and paced in a circle. It was then I spied a dim marking camouflaged against the gray stone of the floor. When I focused on it, it glowed then faded. A rune. I nudged my toe along the edge and stared down at it, trying hard to focus so I might better understand how it worked. Reading this rune requires language, Elven, runecrafting, rank, 20. Your runecrafting rank is too low to read this rune. I smirked at the words, then paced to the other side of the rusted bars. The same symbol glowed in that corner. I found 2 more just like it along the walls on either side of the hard bench. Well, even if I can't read them, I've learned something new. That runes could be used to drain one's energy surprised me, but it probably shouldn't have. I was but a newborn fawn trying to gain her balance in a world filled with magics I didn't comprehend, and with each passing day, I learned new and exciting applications. If only the beings surrounding me would cooperate so I'd learn faster. Frustration consumed me. Irritation welled up. I kicked the bench. For my reward, I received a throbbing big toe and lost 5 hit points. They recovered quickly enough, so whatever the magic draining my life force was, it didn't seem to affect my recovery rate. That I paid attention to that little detail reflected either boredom or a voracious hunger to know everything I could about magic. I suspected the latter, but it was hard to say in the context where I wanted to just drop onto that hard bench and sleep for a day. Door hinges squeaked in the corridor. I dragged myself over to the door to peek out. I might have expected Magister Lyra, Master Renard, or Roshan, but the figure I spied was a walking rail whose robe hung limp over narrow shoulders. His face was shadowed by a wide hood, and he reached up to remove it when he rushed toward the cell, but I knew who it was before he revealed himself. Harbin? What in the goddess's realm are you doing here? The hood slipped away. Then the young caster reached into his pocket. He grinned and held up his hand to show me what he clutched. A key. He slid it into the cell door before his intent dawned on me. He twisted the key, then a metal clang reported the lock had relented. He swung the door open.
I'm getting you out of here before they can execute you.
Kill me? His hand waved impatiently.
No time. Let's go.
My energy swelled the second my foot hit the stone floor outside the cell. When I glanced back at the shell from outside, a sense of awe washed over me at the pure runic power, but I found myself unable to linger in it for long as Harbin shoved me toward the door through which he'd entered. My hand shot to my mouth when we reached the hallway. I spied 2 bearded Templars adorned in their white plate. Harbin shoved me forward again before I could analyze them. He spoke in a harsh whisper.
Move. You'll get us caught.
How did you do that? Are they...
Dead? Of course not. Alchemy is my elective. The instructor is loose about supervising lab hours and leaves his recipe tomes laying around. It's a low-level sleep spell.
Then why didn't they resist?
Low magic defense. Come on.
I whipped my head around for a final look at the Templars, but for the 3rd time he pushed me forward. Stop shoving me, I'm going.
Sorry, but if we're caught, they'll execute us both.
He hustled ahead, raised a hand to still me, then peeked around a corner.
Okay, let's go.
Why am I following him? Where are we going? And why is he risking himself for me? What do you mean they'll kill us? The Magister came to whisk me away from the High Chancellor. She might not be the nicest people, but I don't think she wanted me dead. And how did you get a key?
You should know. It was your key.
He raised it but didn't stop jogging.
Analyze.
I did. Skeleton key, Warrington Academy. This key will open any door at Warrington Academy whose locks haven't been changed since its creation. Harbin explained.
When you gave it to me, I planned to return it to Johan, but when I arrived at his dormitory hallway, guards clustered outside his room and ordered me to stand away.
I cursed in my head. How had I not analyzed the damned key? I was such an idiot. Why are you risking this?
Because I was the one person who knew you were innocent. I'd followed to ensure you made it to the temple without problems.
How did you follow me without my knowing?
Call me Slippery. I was on the 2nd floor landing watching out the window.
I was about to inquire further when it hit me that he was actually very sweet. He'd known I wouldn't want him to risk coming with me, so he'd made excuses then followed anyway. But another question still lingered. Do you really think I'll be executed?
Not if you get out of here.
He peeked around another corner, then waved me forward.
One more stop.
Are we going for Drossenwelling? He shook his head.
Sorry, I don't know where he is.
I was about to open my party chat and reach out when he interrupted the thought.
It's better he not be caught with you anyway.
But he helped me escape the Magister's office when the High Chancellor appeared. We must help him.
He's a Shadow Master. Besides, he's a 3rd or 4th generation member of the most nefarious magic organization known to Rubal. Something tells me he'll find a way out.
The Shadow Council?
One and the same. Now lower your voice.
He stopped at an iron door with bars set in a square. He peeked inside, then slid the key into the lock. After it clicked, he shoved it open. Weapons sat in racks along the back wall, but we had to sweep around a wide table to get to them. I spied my staff in the corner. He grabbed it and tossed it to me.
Wouldn't do to be in the wilds without your weapon.
We hurried out of the room. If you know I'm innocent, why do you think they'd execute me?
You don't let up. Think about it, Tess.
We reached the bottom of a set of wide stairs, then peered up at double wooden doors with iron hinges high above.
They're not going to take my word for the fact you were gone. The High Chancellor is a powerful man.
Yes, but I get the distinct sense that so are the people who stopped him from taking me.
Ever the farm girl.
He took the first step.
But a farm girl they witnessed causing utter destruction in the exercise field. Or have you forgotten that little display?
I wasn't in control.
Exactly. That makes you even more dangerous. You have demons empowering you, following you. I don't know what you did to attract their ire, but...
We reached the halfway point of our incline, and I stopped. It's not ire. Wyzen the Cruel wants me to join his ranks.
Oh, they'll like that even more.
He leaned toward me, and the same warmth I'd felt in my dorm room surged through my veins.
Are you stupid? Or just a little dense?
His sudden harshness caused me to flinch. I stepped back. Harbin peered toward the floor, then shook his head.
Sorry, it's a tense situation, but I came for you, Tess. Could you just follow so I don't end up in the cell next to you?
That seemed more than fair. Besides, when he raised his sorrowful eyes, a wave of guilt caused my heart to sink. Let's go. Despite the cool air, the daylight warmed my face when we burst through the final door. We circled around the building housing Lyra's office, then stopped in its shadows. Harbin leaned on the wall, his chest rising and falling.
Stamina's low. Give me a sec.
I nodded. He spoke through harsh breaths.
I'll need to go to your hiding place until I can arrange to get you transport or something.
Or something?
I'm not exactly well known around here.
He read my expression, then huffed so it was noticeable, even with his uneven breathing.
Okay, maybe I didn't plan it all out, but time seemed of the essence.
I wasn't about to complain when I had other concerns. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, but I couldn't take him to the cave. If they followed us, they could find Brunk. If that happened, all the turmoil would have been for nothing because I could have just shown them where I was when Johan was killed. If only I'd invited Brunk to a party so I could warn him away. But hindsight wasn't going to fix the past, only the future. I can't take you to my hiding place.
What? Of course you can.
A cold shiver ripped down my back when I peered into his wide, suddenly hateful eyes. Heat rose in my chest, then swarmed to my head. Wait, you... His eyelids reappeared and lowered to half-mast.
Shit. Took you that long, did it?
He scanned the surrounding campus, then pushed away from the wall.
So be it.
When he raised one hand, it flashed with deep purple light. You have been silenced. Then he waved two hands in strange patterns as I faltered backward. A thick thread of black energy washed over his hair, revealing its true ebony coloring in a wave. One white streak ran down the left side. The long, straight locks reached his shoulders. The ropey, crackling wave passed over his face, revealing obsidian irises and a wide nose perched over fuller lips. His shoulders broadened as it passed. Then his robe billowed in an ethereal wind as it expanded. A new wave of heat passed over my body as I winked my eyes in succession. Shurton Dijon, human, level 19, shadow mage, melee power rating 13, melee defense rating 11, ranged power rating 9, ranged defense rating 8, magic power rating 38, magic resistance rating 21. I eyed the first name, Shurton. Where had I seen that name? A stone formed in my throat, so I had to force air into my lungs. Images flooded through my mind so fast they dizzied me. The tome with the Worcester's notes to his acolyte. Acolyte Shurton. In the coming pages you will find notes on mana weaving. More images. Drasen Welling standing in a narrow alley in the shadows, and the warmth passing over me when I detected him. The same warmth engulfing me on the exercise field when I met Harbin of Milbury. The same warmth I'd mistaken for strange attraction in my dorm room. You're the Worsager's apprentice. I took another step back. He squinted at my feet.
Yes, that's just perfect. Step into the sunlight so they can find you, idiot.
He grasped my robe, yanked me forward. I stood dumbly in his grip. He glanced around to ensure the motion hadn't been detected.
Don't worry, the guards don't patrol this side. They've installed wards here and will be placing more around the campus. But I suppose those are the least of your concerns.
He backhanded me, and a flash of pain surged through my cheek.
Where's the tome?
My head lulled under the dizzying impact. After it steadied, I narrowed my eyes. What tome? A wide grin spread his mouth to reveal yellowing teeth beneath.
You have no other method of learning my identity, Tess. I'm no fool. Now you will tell me where the tome is, or I'll force it from your dying lips.
I sneered at the threat. Party, Contessa of Milbury. Drassen, Harbin of Milbury is not who he says. He's the Worsager's acolyte. We're on the north side of the administration building. Party, Drassen Welling.
Tess, you must keep him there. I will try to convince the Magister to help.
Shurton craned his neck forward.
No? Fine.
He raised his free hand and shoved me away with the other. A casting bar popped into existence above his head. Why? I blurted. The bar halted while half filled.
Why what, Tess? Why am I here? Why did I murder Johin Tur? I think it would be obvious enough.
I'm a simple farm girl, remember? He chuckled.
Fine. I'll satiate your curiosity, but then you will tell me where the tome is.
He didn't await agreement.
I detected Johin's shadow affinity the first time I saw him. It was slight, but his magic potential showed some promise. When I learned his identity, son of the great and high Chancellor Tur in Charlesby, I knew he could serve my purpose.
Roshan's words echoed in my mind. Tell her how she is not so slick as she thinks. Explain to her how a level 38 priestess of the light can detect her shadow aura at furthest sight of her. Astute? Humph. So perhaps she'd sensed Shurton's shadow affinity as well. What possible purpose could Johin serve? He was but a floundering idiot.
There we agree. But when these people killed my master, they took everything from me. I swore vengeance. I would destroy this new iteration of this cursed place, then grow my power to take vengeance on the bastards who killed him, starting with that priestess bitch.
Roshan killed him?
She was part of it, yes. Johin wanted nothing more than to please his overbearing father, so I tempted him into my service with the promise of power the light school couldn't teach. When he saw an opportunity to improve in both disciplines, he jumped at the chance. I let him use the key to study in the below, a dramatic name imagined by fools if you ask me. But then he showed his true colors after classes started. He had to show off, make himself appear special, and if it wasn't bad enough, he revealed the place to you all, then locked you inside. Idiot.
The sudden outburst sent me back a step as the warmth radiating off him renewed. I wondered how powerful his shadow affinity must have been. Not as strong as Master Welling's, as I had to be close to sense it. So it was you Johin spoke of outside the dormitory the other night. The one who owned the key. The one who would come for me after he was punished. He waved a hand in a circular motion, dropped it to his waist, then bowed over it.
One and the same.
Thoughts whipped around in my mind. So you killed him for his insolence?
Try harder, girl.
I scowled, then a lamplight flicked on in my brain. You killed him because you knew it would bring the High Chancellor down on the Academy. The funding would be threatened. You murdered an innocent boy because of your thirst for revenge. I followed the thread to its end. And you helped me escape campus so I'd have no alibi. Your deduction skill has reached rank 4.
Much better. Perhaps there's hope for you yet.
Your interrogation skill has reached rank 6. He tipped his chin upward.
You know, you could join us.
Who was part of this us he spoke of? Join you? He nodded.
Your shadow affinity is undeniable. My master instilled in me disciplines you could greatly benefit from. For instance, the ability to shroud my appearance. They'd never find you.
When I tell them you are the murderer, I'll have no reason to run.
Do you really think it's that simple? The High Chancellor will chase you to the ends of Enora. His ego would never permit for him to allow people to think he was mistaken. He will claim you were in cahoots with me, and I might just let you live to prove it.
A rumbling caused my feet to tremble. I threw out my arms for balance before realizing the sensation was inside me. But Shurton's eyes shot to his feet, then up to my face again. His gaze diverted over my shoulder as he pressed himself against the wall. I wheeled around. A shining black figure rose from a shimmering horizontal halo inches above the grass. Jagged, glassy spikes merged to a point atop his crown, and a fiery obsidian sword flamed in his hand. Wizen the Cruel reached out with a clawed hand, turned it, then rolled his fingers toward his palm to make a fist. Shurton's feet jerked off the ground, then he convulsed in the air.
Your thirst for revenge clouds your judgment, Shurton John.
The embers that were his eyes glowed brighter.
Was my command unclear? The girl was not to be touched.
But I'm the one who told you where she was. You promised me revenge, and you've done nothing to aid in my plans.
So that's how Wizen tracked me.
I turned the girl against the priestess who aided in the murder of your master, and you accuse.
Wizen the Cruel twisted his fist, then punched the air. Shurton flew backward, then slammed into the wall. His body thumped limply to the ground. The demon turned his head. And although I only had burning orange embers to gauge by, it was obvious his gaze fell on me.
Contessa, alone at last.